Appreciate y'all coming today. Tom Broom becomes the 21st football player to be inducted into the Nichols Athletics Hall of Fame and the first member of the class of 2011. The Columbia, Mississippi native is only the second offensive lineman to enter our Hall of Fame. A two-way starter at Columbia High School, Broom played center for the Fighting Colonels from 1976 through 1979. Broom was named to the Nichols Football Team of the Decade, representing 1971 through 1981. He was one of only two offensive linemen selected for such recognition. Broom was selected first team All-Louisiana by the Louisiana Sports Writers Association in 1977. The LSWA recognized him for his play once again, naming him second team All-Louisiana following his senior year in 1979. While dedicated to his team and the sport of football, Broom excelled in the classroom as well. He was twice named to the President's List and selected to the Dean's List on 5 separate occasions. In the summer of 1979, Broom completed his undergraduate degree and entered graduate school while still a member of the football team. By doing so, he became the very first postgraduate student to play on a Nichols sports team. Broom completed his MBA in 1980. And Tom is married to the former Janet Marie Owens, who was also a Nichols graduate. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Tom Broom.
Thank you, sir, for that wonderful introduction. As my family knows, we refer to that guy as Tommy Broom. Tom Broom is the guy that left Nichols with a great education, and but we remember Tommy, and Tommy had some good times when he was here at Nichols. Chancellor Holbert, Athletic Director Bernardi, Hall of Fame members, Hall of Fame inductees, family, friends, teammates, coaches. It's just my humble privilege to be here before you right now. This was shocking, as Rob could attest when he called to tell me, and he also did warn me that I need to make a few comments. So I've given that a little bit of thought. And Michelle, where's Michelle? Michelle, yes. Michelle kind of said, well, they usually start the comments out with a little humorous anecdote. So I'm going to start maybe a tired and old one, but it might work for this crowd, for this occasion. Did you hear the one about the redneck teenager who left the rolling hills and piney woods of Mississippi to come to the bayous and marshes of South Louisiana? Wait, I know you know this one. So usually there's a little bit of trouble involved. There's usually a beautiful Cajun girl. There's a dad with a shotgun, and there's somebody that's scare bait at the end of the story. But in my case, it's a little bit different. There was this 17-year-old redneck, 6'5", a whopping 210 pounds, who left his ancestral home and wandered down the bayou or up the bayou to Thibodeau, and instead of becoming gator bait, he played about 5 years of football and made some great friends and got a good education, and 37 years later, somebody said, let's put him in the Hall of Fame. So, tired, old story, but a little bit different outcome. So how does that happen? I mean, how did that not end up as gator bait? And the answer is through faith, family, friends, teammates, coaches. Faith, I do not have the mental or physical capacity to do what has happened that results in my being here still this morning. So I have to thank my Creator and my personal Savior, Jesus Christ, for all these good things that have come my way. I am truly a blessed man stands before you this afternoon. Thank you. I'll get a little closer to the mic. Family, I come from good stock. Tom and Charmaine Broom, both born in the 1920s in rural Mississippi. Grew up during the Great Depression, became adults during World War II. My dad was in the Army. My mom was a home front worker. They were tough. They were hardworking. They had great faith, and they persevered. Some of that, fortunately, got passed on to me through DNA, and there's 3 young ladies at that table back there that had that same DNA. So I was blessed with great parents, and I believe that they are here today with me in spirit. I deeply wish they could be here in person. There was a reference to a former Janet Marie Owens, my college sweetheart. We began dating my junior year, and I think she kept me out of trouble for 3 years. And a little bit of time passed, but we then got married and have been together for 28 years. And she's the love of my life. So representing my parents, I'd like for my sister Cheryl to stand, and representing Janet, I'd like for her to stand and acknowledge them. Friends, when I started getting letters my junior year from Nicholls State and Thibodaux, Louisiana, the only thing I knew about Thibodaux was that Amos Moses lived 45 miles southeast of here. I could have easily gone to school in a foreign country. Different language, different culture, different food, different weather, different geography. So I knew that if I was going to survive down here, I had to make some friends and make them fast. I knew one person at Nicholls when I arrived on campus. That was Dr. George Perry. Many of you know him as veterinarian down the valley, and his dad was also Dr. Perry. They had a farm outside of Columbia, and we got to know each other. Actually worked out together the summer before we both reported. So I knew George, and I said, well, we'll get to know the football team, but maybe I need to know a few other folks too. And sure enough, I decided to join a fraternity. So I talked to some friends of mine from high school who had joined fraternities at their colleges, and I said, well, how do you pick a fraternity? And they said, well, that's easy. You go to the prettiest girls on campus and ask them what's the best fraternity. So I did that, and they all answered the same thing, Tau Kappa Epsilon. And during that first semester redshirt year, especially in the fall when the team traveled and I didn't, and really in every spring when most of the local folks kind of went home on Thursday night or Friday morning, I had great times and great experiences with my fraternity brothers, and there are several of them here today. I'd like for them to stand and to be recognized, if you would, please. If you can. Steve Boyer, and Ruger Thibodeau. Great Colonel fans. The teams were always our best supporters every year I was here, and I think that's still the case today. But teammates. I estimate I had over 200 teammates while I was here. You play football for 5 years, a lot of folks come and go through that locker room. So if you take any one year, you got 100 people on the football team, half for offense, half for defense. So let's focus on the offense. We're down to 50. You got offensive linemen, probably 20 offensive linemen, so you're down to 20. You got 5 starters, you got 2 tackles, you got 2 guards, and you got a center. So this is a hard part. I'm blessed to have 2 of those 5 with me today. 2 are no longer with us. Rest in peace, Mac, and rest in peace, Freddie. Great men, gone before their time. But we were the wild bunch. 5 offensive linemen, tackle to tackle. And a couple of those folks are here today, Ed and Richard Curlin. I'm going to keep your seats for just a moment. You'll get to stand in a minute. And then there was another special teammate, a guy who somehow managed to room with me for 3.5 years, and he too is here today. So that's Dan Gagne. So number 58, number 74, number 83, stand and be recognized, please. And then, of course, the coaches. You coaches, I know there are a lot of coaches in the room. You're fathers to us. You know, I've acknowledged my Heavenly Father and my birth father, but I remember every coach I ever had. I remember details about every coach that they did not see that I remember. But Coach Bill Packmeyer on the green team, Coach John McCants, Columbia Junior High, Coach Larry Hancock, Columbia High School, Coach Joe Big Smooth Freelix, offensive line coach, Columbia High School. Of course, our dear Coach Clements, Nicholls State, Coach Bob Rowe, first offensive line coach, Coach Randy Raymond, second offensive line coach, Coach Dick Nolan, head coach, New Orleans Saints, Coach Dick Stanfield, offensive line coach, New Orleans Saints. These men, you know, I don't have their DNA, but who's Kristen, you're a biologist, what's the next thing to DNA? I've got that in me, so I want to thank all of the wonderful coaches that I've had over the years. I would not be the man that I am today without you. And there's one other coach, and Rob has already acknowledged him. Coach T.C. Cowley's, literally, my life would not be the same today without him. He was never my position coach, but he was the recruiter for South Mississippi and came up and recruited my mom and got me to go down to this foreign country of Thibodeau. The recruiting mom was a lifeline, by the way. Good recruiters back then. If they could get the mom, they knew they'd have the player. So Coach Cowley was a great man. We buried him Monday. Coach Raymond, who's going to be inducted here today, eulogized him, and again, back to the seance thing, I think he'd still be with me here today. So in closing, and I've gone far too long, but this is a very special moment for me, I think about the Kenny Chesney song, The Voice of Fall, and there's a line in there that says, I've got your back whenever you're against the wall. You mess with one of us, you mess with us all. And that goes to the grave. And I think that's what happened at Shady's Bar in Baton Rouge, but don't tell anybody. And I thought I was the first offensive lineman being inducted. Obviously, I was mistaken, but I'm privileged to be the second, and Reed knew he will be the third. So to have 40 years of Nicholls football and now 3 offensive linemen, that's just, right? A little bit overdue, Reed, and Richard, and then finally, the seniors of 1979. We played on the third best team in the history of Nicholls. I was fortunate to play on the second and third best teams in the history of Nicholls. 1975, we were 8-2. 1979, we were 8-3. There are no seniors. There are 4 seniors from the class of 75, and they deserve it, don't they, Mr. Danoff? But there are also no seniors from the class of 1979, and we're going to change that today too. So I'd like to accept this award on behalf of all of the offensive linemen and all of the seniors, the other 12 seniors from the class of 1979. Thank you so much.
Down about 1.5 feet. Matt Shelton, Prairie View native, becomes a 79th member of the Nicholls Athletics Hall of Fame and the first soccer player ever selected to our Hall of Fame. Shelton was the heart and soul of the soccer team from 1984 through 1989. Following the 89 season, in which the Colonels finished 12-8, his head coach, Lester Beamer, referred to Shelton as, quote, one of the 3 big guns on our soccer team. A 4-year starter, Shelton led the upstart Colonels to 3 winning seasons. He was one of only 2 Colonel players selected to the Region 3 All-Star team in both 1987 and 1988, as the Colonels finished the 88 campaign by capturing 2nd place in the SEC tournament, losing to Mississippi State in the final match. What impressed admirers of that team was not the win totals, but the team's persistence and success, given the huge disadvantages that program had at the time. The biggest was the lack of athletic scholarships for men's soccer players. It was pure dedication from Shelton and his teammates that contributed to a successful program, battling each week against funded SEC and Division I opponents. Shelton and the Colonels never let those resource advantages get in the way of inspiring and winning performances, and they did both with regularity. Following the conclusion of the 1989 season, Shelton earned his degree and entered graduate school. Shelton completed his MBA from Nichols in 1991. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Matt Shelton.
I had to look at that picture because it's like, ooh, does not look like me right now. I was like, oh, okay, that's a little bit older. Now this is unbelievable. I actually had to write things down because I knew as we talk about this, the emotions are going to kick in and things like that. I want to thank the athletic department, the selection committee. This is definitely a big honor. Just coming, like I said, I have to write these things down so I don't get sidetracked. It's kind of hard following him because he pretty much had everything planned out what he's going to talk about, and I went back and forth for probably since we talked. What do I need to say? What do I talk about? And definitely a lot of thank yous. Definitely to my parents who. Basically, I dragged them all over the country. They did whatever was possible to let me play. And growing up in California, we did tours. I was able to go to England to go play, and they made it possible. And when we moved back to Louisiana, they continue to provide the opportunities to travel and play. And those of you that have been around Nichols and playing with soccer while I was there, still not sure why, but they bought a 15-passenger van, and it became known as the Shelton Shuttle because they made every game, home games for sure. As we traveled, we piled players in. And they'd go, but definitely big thank you to them for everything that they did for me. This is a special day to share with my family. Not only my wife and children, but my other parents, family, friends, coaches. Coach Alex drove in from Austin to be here, and I definitely appreciate him being here. And then we have Lester Beamer. Lester, probably my senior year, I got a call from Lester Beamer. He said, I heard about you. Would you consider coming to Nichols? And we kind of talked about Nichols and the soccer program and what they were doing, an up-and-coming program. And so we talked for quite a while, and I had two questions. One, where is Nichols? Not growing up in Louisiana, I had never heard of Nichols. I did not know about it. And so then my next question was, not only where is Thibodeau, but how do you spell it so I can find it on the map? I figured, I had first thought that I had never been south of I-10, but I didn't remember that I did come down to play soccer game in Houma once before coming down to Nichols for the first time. And the thing about Nichols and what Lester instilled in my brain, because, he'd come and we'd talk in Baton Rouge at a game, and we'd talk on the phone. The one thing that he said is, you have to come visit. You need to come see Nichols. And that's what I did. I came down to Nichols and fell in love with Nichols. So not only did I have the opportunity to play soccer collegiately for 4 years, I was able to attend a great university and was able to develop a lot of huge friendships. And the soccer family itself was like a family. We did everything together. We basically lived together. Of course, Long Hall doesn't exist anymore, which is where we lived. Dr. Dial said he could put the soccer team in the new dorms that they have nowadays anyway. So that's why I think we ended up being Long Hall. But Lester said he had to come to Nichols. And so I made the trip down here and was able to see the school, meet some of the people around, and I was sold. I can see myself here. And that's what I ended up doing. So again, like I said, the soccer team itself, we had a lot of people that stayed together for the 4 years that I was here, and even after that. And today, a lot of us still get together. We're still a close-knit group of friends. We had probably 12 of us about 2 years ago got together and went and played in a tournament. That was a sight. You're talking guys who probably hadn't played in some cases 15 years, getting together, and we survived. We made it to the semifinals of our little tournament, which was kind of shocking to us, but we did well. And it's something that, as a group, that we're going to continue to doing. And I was talking to Coach Alex that we're looking for another tournament. We're going to play because it's something that we learned here at Nichols that we're family, we're a close knit, and we were able to continue that friendship. And even to the day, we're great friends. Although my original goal growing up was I was going to play professional soccer and make a career of it. And I did, was able to kind of realize that dream a little bit. I did sign a professional contract and I was able to play 1 year, but then reality and life takes a hold of you, and I ended up with a new goal, and that was to be a great father. And so this is why it's emotional. It's very special that my kids are here today. And that's my goal, is to help them reach their dreams. And again, that's one of those things that you learn growing up in schools like this. And my dream for them is to teach them to be the best they can be, and not to settle. And so hopefully that's something that I can teach to them, and this award kind of helps with that. And I have my wife Leah, 20 years, and we met here at Nichols. She basically has the best advice that I've always used, and she says it at least, if not weekly, every other day. She says it. She's a school teacher, so she says it over and over again to them. And I think if you follow her advice, you're going to be successful in anything. And it's real simple. Work hard, do the right thing. And simple words. And that's something that, being at Nichols, I was able to learn and to do. And I try to make that a point with my children as well. And again, this is a huge honor for me because, again, soccer, the men's soccer program went away when Southern Conference came in because it wasn't a conference sport. And they do have the women's program now. So men's soccer is kind of forgotten in some cases, but this helps make that memory that men's soccer was here. It was a big program. Lester did a wonderful job. Like he said, we didn't have a lot of scholarship. We didn't have people on scholarship money, but Lester did whatever needed to be done to make it possible for the program to continue. And again, I thank him for that, because without that, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to come here and learn, get a good education, and be able to pass that on, to my children. So hopefully it continues. We actually took a tour of Nichols today, so kind of pushing her that way, but we'll see what happens. But again, to the committee, all the fellow inductees, thank you.
Becomes the 80th member of the Hall of Fame and joins fellow offensive linemen Lynn Bychurch and Tom Broom in a very exclusive group of 3 O-linemen in the Hall of Fame, select group indeed. A product of South Lafourche High School, Perry was a 3-year starter for the Colonels. Originally recruited as a guard, he switched to tackle at the start of his junior season and was a mainstay on the offensive line for Nichols. As a sophomore, Perry helped lead the Colonels to the NCAA Division I AA playoffs. Head coach Sonny Jackson and the boys finished that season 10-2, falling to eventual national champion Georgia Southern in the quarterfinals. It remains today the furthest any Colonel football team has ever advanced in NCAA postseason play. Following the 1987 season, Perry was selected to the Associated Press All-American squad, one of only a handful of Colonel linemen selected for that honor. A team captain of the 1988 squad, Perry was named First Team All-Louisiana by the Louisiana Sports Writers Association. Perry was also a member of the Nichols track and field team, setting the school record in the discus throw in 1987. In 1997, he was named to the Silver Anniversary team in recognition of the first 25 years of Colonel's football. In this, the 40th season of Colonel football, the Hall of Fame welcomes Mr. Reed Barrett.
Okay, so I guess we got to start with a funny story. I have 3. The first one, Lester, Matt said you did a lot for the soccer team. You did a lot for all athletics. Lester used to work the door at the Colonel's retreat. And we paid the table price on Thursday nights. We'd give Lester $5. We'd go in, drink about $80 of beer, and come back and hand us $5 back. Then you always love it. So, and then I got a note from a local bar owner here in Thibodeau congratulating me for making the 2nd Hall of Fame. So, I'm going to take that. The third one involves another inductee tonight. That's Darryl there. I was hoping to go after him. First time I realized Darryl was destined for greatness. After I finished playing, a couple other student coaches, myself and Brad Vasso, were working one night late, breaking down film, and worked right through supper in the cafeteria. So Darryl comes back, what you been doing back there about 10 o'clock at night? I think you were sleeping there, right? Darryl was coaching. And he said, man, I need some help. Let me help you break down film. And he said, Darryl, we got it. If you want help, we're starving. Can you get us some food? He said, I got some. I got it. So we started smelling something cooking. It smelled pretty good. We started thinking, there's no kitchen in here. What's he cooking? Well, he had fired up the coffee pot and cut up some Spam and fried it right there on the plate. Walked in with a can of Spam, fried up Spam, and I sweet and saltines and fat. That's great. Thank you, Darryl. Great man. First of all, I'd like to thank the selection committee, Rob and Dr. Hulbert. Just a little bit about Rob and Dr. Hulbert. Really think the university, I know the university is in great hands with you guys. I was able to take a class with Dr. Hulbert in my master's program and realized his deep love for this university and how much of a great job you're doing. Thank y'all. Without getting really long-winded, I'm trying not to. There's a few people I'd like to recognize. First and foremost, the coaches that coached us. We went through two staffs, Coach Jackson's staff and Coach Greco's staff. So we went through a lot of coaches, but those are some of the best people in the world. They put up with a lot of foolishness, obviously, but they counseled us, they coached us, and they pushed us to be excellent. So really, you know, any of the coaches who are here, you need to know the impact that you guys have in our lives, and we really appreciate that. Coach Jackson is someone, you know, Sonny Jackson is someone I really need to thank. When I was coming out of high school, I had several knee surgeries and was offered scholarships to most of the schools in Louisiana, but really said, look, if your knees go out on you, then you come on your own. But Sonny sat there, and you know, my mom remembers that, and he said, you know, you come to Nichols and you'll graduate from Nichols. So really like to thank Sonny, and you know, he guaranteed me a graduate from Nichols. He didn't know how long it was going to take me, but he did guarantee me that. Sonny really created an exciting environment at Nichols. For those of you who are around, if you remember, it was a great time to play at Nichols. He treated us like we were big-time players. He created an environment. I see John shaking his head. You know, he created an environment that made you think you were playing, you know, big-time college football. So Sonny, really, I need to thank Sonny and everything he did for us. And it reflected in our success on the field. I talked to him this week, and like he finishes all his conversations with his former players that he ended with, and I love you. So just the impact that Sonny had and that lasting relationship with Coach Jackson is still there amongst all his players. And those of you who played for him know that and really appreciate that. So I couldn't be here tonight, but I really wanted to say that about Coach. The other coach, I hate to single any coaches out, there's another coach, and his name is Kenny Farrell. He's probably one of the most respected offensive line coaches in the nation. And the gratitude I have for him for teaching me my craft and teaching us about, you know, the specific techniques of offensive line play were invaluable to us. And really, one of the main reasons myself and others that played for him succeeded. Coach Farrell was also responsible for fueling that fire that I had to become a coach. He lived it and breathed it, and some of you who work with him know that, or worked with him before in lineman camp. Y'all know about Coach Farrell. He'd actually walk around the dorms at night, and he'd kind of peek in the rooms to see who was still up to talk football. He want to talk about this line football now. 21-year-old guys, you know, we really don't want to talk football. You know, 8 o'clock at night, we're going to do something else. So we pretend like we were sleeping or something. And he'd find somebody, he'd sit there and he'd talk football with him all night. But he lived it and really fueled that fire to be a coach. Also, you know, when you're in college and fellow inductees and members of people, just if you play college athletics, you know you need a good support system, even though you don't maybe have scholarship money and stuff like that. You know you need a good support system, and I definitely need to thank my family. You know, my sister, you know, Kim, my big sister Kim was living in Thibodeau at the time. You know, those little $20 bill loans you gave me, I don't have to pay back, but they weren't off of laundry. So, and my mom, you know, all my family made out-of-town trips, and that's a sacrifice, you know, on Saturday to travel and come back. But it means a lot when you're playing at, you know, at Sam Houston or Stephen F. Austin, and you know your family's up in the stands cheering you on. So it meant a lot to us back then. So really, you know, I want to thank my family for being there for us. Most importantly, I'd like to recognize my teammate. I think everybody touched on this, Matt and Tom. Your teammates, and I have a few here. Todd, stand-up Mike, Roddy, John. You know, guys that we played with and lived with, and you know, you're right. You know, we had each other's back. We were as close as brothers because back then you lived in a dorm where everybody lived together. So for 24/7 you lived with these people. Holidays you go to their parents' house or whatever. So you really became like brothers. When I look back, the time in the dorms and the Barker buildings on Big Red riding hoping to get to whatever game we were playing. Those were invaluable times. Those are times when you made unbelievable friendships, a lot of lifelong friends, people that we still call each other all the time. We listened to each other's problems. We went out and danced with each other. We practiced together. We hurt together. We laughed together. You were just together all the time, and at that time you don't realize it, but you make it lifelong friends. So really, my teammates, again, I credit Coach Jackson with creating or bringing together a really diverse group of people. For somebody like me, me and Barry, I guess they say the two Kunasses for lads. We were from here, but man, he brought in guys from Cuba, Jamaica. We had people from all over the place, and it was like, golly, there's a whole other world out there, and you meet these people, and they influence you, and they kind of, you realize there's something else out there. So I really want to credit Coach Jackson for bringing a pretty diverse group of people into, and it was a special group and teammates. But really, when you look back, your real education took place those in the dorm. Some of you guys know, those late night talks and sitting around with the guys in the dorm. We wouldn't have cable TV, what else to do other than sit around and talk. And probably should have been studying, not Dr. Holbert. But just sitting around talking and really get to know people. You just can't, unless you live through it, you can't really understand how special that was. So really, my teammates, thank you. And we'll continue to be lifelong friends. And can count on each other and have each other's back. To this day. Right, Tom? To this day. To the grave. And finally, there's two people that are no longer with us that I felt like I needed to mention. And a part of this honor that I'm receiving, first of all, is my dad, who instilled in me a tremendous love for me and my brother, a tremendous love of football. He didn't push us or was overbearing, but we learned to love the game through him. He taught us the importance of hard work, playing through pain. We never hurt growing up. We never hurt. And how to handle with class both success and disappointment. I felt like I needed to mention that, to mention him. When we were growing up, my brother and I lived, breathed, and ate football, and wanted to be just like him. He never told me this, but I know he really wanted me to go to Nichols. Being a high school coach, he really didn't have the luxury on Saturdays to travel very far. He never said it, but I know he wanted me to go to Nichols. And he was friends with a lot of the coaches. And actually, we grew up going to Nichols games, not LSU games. My dad went to LSU. So we go to LSU games because he was a coach and he worked on Saturdays. So I grew up in the stands watching people like Allen and Rusty and those guys play. Finally, I think I need to mention, and my teammates will know exactly what I'm talking about, a person who was our brother, who was an inspiration to all of us. His name was Octavio Ox Gonzalez. And he was part of that group from 85 to 88, who was really an inspiration to all of us. To watch him and understand what he overcame to get to Thibodeau, struggles in Miami, coming over from Cuba, and he impacted all of us. Everybody he came into contact with will always talk about Octavio to this day. I definitely need to mention him because he is definitely a part of this. For those of you who don't know, Octavio was a police officer who was killed on line of duty about 5 years ago. But he was a colonel till the end. He made us laugh, but he always had our back in more ways than one. Thank you, Ox. Finally, my family now, my beautiful wife Jill, my two boys, Hunter and Bailey, and Riley, who's not here, thank God, and my friends who I worked with in the coaching profession who are here. I really appreciate you guys being here. And one of my friends now that I work with in my new profession, thanks for coming. It means a lot to share this with you today. And again, I'd like to thank Rob. Again, it's humbling to be a part of this, and really appreciate it. This is usually an honor, say, for the Josh Sons and Doug Hudsons of the world. So being an offensive lineman, it means a little bit more too. So thank you very much.
Darrell Bear becomes a 13th baseball player and the 81st member overall inducted into the Nichols Athletics Hall of Fame. A 3-year starter for the Colonels, Hebert played his sophomore and junior seasons under the legendary Ray Didier. Hebert helped the 1972 team into the regionals as an outfielder, but it wasn't until the 1973 season that Hebert found a home. It was behind home plate as a catcher. Those new surroundings seemed to suit him well. He led the team in hitting during his senior season with a .351 batting average. For his efforts, he was named to the Gulf South All-Conference team in 1974 and was also selected to the American Association of Baseball Coaches All-American squad that year. He finished his degree in 1975 and entered coaching, which included a stint at Nichols as an assistant from 1989 through 1993. Hebert's love for coaching continues as he enters his 4th decade, leading young men on and off the field of play. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Darrell Hebert.
I'm certainly glad, Matt, you went after Tom. Tom, where are you, Tom? Tom said, if you run for president, I'm voting for you. I was very scared, to tell you the truth. And by the way, I'm hoarse. Had a rough game last night. But in the program, it kind of looked like I was behind the top. If you look at, I was really. Thank y'all very much. I appreciate everything. President Hogan, Athletic Department, Committee, Raz. Raz and I have been friends for a very, very long time. Raz said I have at least 30 minutes to talk today. After Tom's speech, Matt, it's tough. I retold a story, and he was scaring me very much. I was kind of worried about which story you were doing. Because he's sitting very close to a couple guys that, I know very well. That way. There's a lot of teammates out here. There's a lot of family out here. And it's a tremendous honor for me. Really is. It's really down in my heart, and it hurts. And I can't get it out, I will tell you a couple stories, though, like they thought I would. But I'll tell you the Lafayette story. I'm from Lafayette originally. I've been with my wife since we were 14 years old, childhood sweethearts. And Daddy comes one afternoon and he says, you got a game tonight? And I said, yes, sir, I do. He says, you need to be real good tonight. And I said, why is that? He said, there's someone from Nichols coming to scout you. And I said, oh, okay. So I did whatever I do and everything else. And the Lafayette connection, of course, is Coach Didier, Coach Landry, and a number of other people that are still in here. And so I played that night, and Dad said, well, look, we're meeting with Coach Didier tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. And I said, good. He said, now dress up and comb your hair, and do that. And I had a lot of hair in those days. So we knocked on the door, and this lady comes to the door, and she said, well, why don't you just come in and sit in the parlor? This is a true story now. This is the recruiting story, okay? Sit in the parlor, so I sat down, and Coach Didier came out, and if you know Coach Didier, he's this big, okay? And he says, Mr. Hebert, how you doing? Darrell, how you doing? I said, yes, sir. He said, you can sit down right there. So I sat down, And he walks into the kitchen with my dad. I'm sitting there, I don't know what I'm doing. So he comes back out about 20 minutes later and he says, Darrell, do you want to be a colonel? And I said, yes, sir. He said, well, you are. I said, that's it? I said, but you see this mustache here? That's got to go. See that hair? It's got to go. Well, I didn't know it was going to all go. You understand? Like they did in the olden days. I know you know the people that are around. They cut you all completely shit. You know, so that started the deal with Coach D-Day. And Coach was a tremendous man. Of course, you all know that. The field's dedicated to him. I played in the old era. The old era with the old field. You know, the picket fence. And Rusty can attest to that. We'd run through the picket fence many times, you know. And the ball players that we had were tremendous. I remember Frankie telling me one day, he says, hey, man, you were a good ball player in high school. I said, yes, sir. Yes, I was. He said, you were one of the best on your team. Yes, I was. He said, that means you were one of the best in the city, Lafayette. I said, yes, sir, I was. He said, we all like that. We all good over here. I did, oops. So my scholarship situation of $40 a year. And the educational process very quickly, you know, made me believe you got to work your tail off to get around here. And we did. And I was very fortunate, of course. They had just come back from the 1970 season where we lost in the finals. And then 71, 2, 3, 4 was tremendous for us. We went to the regionals in 72 and 74. By the way, all the seniors hit 340 or better that year. Rondon in the wooden bat era, by the way. Not the aluminum, okay? Just to let you know that. All right? But anyway, then all of a sudden I went home and I married Marcia and had 2 boys and Bubba and Derek and tremendous situation. And I was coaching and we were very successful. And Mike Knight called. And he says, I got a position for you. I said, where? He said, a nickel to coach baseball. Your alma mater. I said, man, I got to go. So, boy, I took off. Marcia said, you go. When you're okay over there, call me. Well, I made so much money, I called it in about a year. Actually, it was 18 months, baby. So like 18 months. I lived in the dorm a few times. You know, Reed was right. I got Reed out a couple bars. You know. And, but we had a tremendous amount of respect for Mike Knight and the program. And it just so happens in '89 we were very good. Very, very good. We were 44-16. And we had pitching. I coached the pitchers and catchers, fortunately. I asked them how they were going to, do, and they said they were going to pitch hard, and I said, go for it, baby. Strike somebody out, throw strikes, strike. That's how I coach. Throw strikes, strike them out. So I don't have to do nothing. Didn't quite work out that way, but we had tremendous success. The pitching staff, and of course all the catchers. There were 17 guys that actually got drafted or had free agent contracts that I coached during the 5 years that I was there. So, it was tremendous. Rafe's one of them that's still with us here. And I recruited Rafe out of Baton Rouge. He came down, married a Cajun girl. Baton Rouge is pretty far from me. Married a Cajun girl, and he stayed. I will tell you one story about Rafe and I. If you know anything about baseball, you got to run these pitches. You got to work them hard. You got to really work them hard. So I said, well, I'm going to be very smart about this thing. I don't know how much to run. I'm coming from high school. So I said, all right, how much y'all think y'all need to run? They said, well, we need to do this, 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 and this. I said, okay, compile all that up, and we're going to figure out how to do it. So this certain day they had to run 4 3/4 miles. It just so happened, okay, 4 3/4 miles. So I had this brand new truck come in. No, it was an old truck. Very, very old truck. And it stopped many times, by the way. And this certain time we were running, and we'd run into the country club, and we'd run around. Well, on my way back, they were really making me mad. They were, how the players do with coaches, So I was driving my truck, and they were running behind me. And I was just a driver, and I said, yeah, well, we got close to that hospital over there on the backside of Percy Brown. So I turned my truck off. And then, of course. And so, what's wrong? Yeah, the truck won't run. I don't know what's wrong. So So I said, why don't y'all just push me? Push me around. Go ahead, y'all push me. And of course, they got excited, and they got real mad, and then it got really serious. I thought it was going to be a mutiny for a while. But anyway, and when I figured they had about enough, I cranked it up and I took off. You read that already? You were well already. I was there. But on a serious note, the two coaches that coached me, Coach DBA and Coach Calmees, of course, have both passed, and they had a tremendous effect on me for playing the game and coaching the game. And I guess that's why I went into coaching. I'm not an excitable guy, as you can see. On Friday night I am, and game day I am, but I've done this basically all my life. And when they said you play golf, Al, I'd love to see you play golf. I remember when you hung that guy out the window. I know, I'm right by you, I was laughing. But I do want to thank everybody, and I'm under my time limit Raz gave me, and thank you all very much, and I sure do appreciate it.
Record, winning 72% of the time. Raymond's tenure here as head coach included 3 NCAA Division II men's tennis tournament appearances. His teams fared progressively better in the NCAAs, finishing 4th in 1978, 3rd in 1979, and 2nd in 1980. The Curls began the 1979 season with a string of 28 straight dual match victories. The team finished that season at 17-1 with an incredible run of 43 consecutive dual match victories that spanned over 3 seasons. That included wins against nationally ranked teams like Florida State, Wisconsin, Ole Miss, and Kansas. Raymond's 1980 team went 16-2 and finished 2nd at the NCAA championships that year. Following the 1980 season, Coach Raymond resigned his duties as head tennis coach and entered private business. The very next season, the Colonels would begin their first year of competition at the Division I level. Coach Raymond could not be with us here today, but accepting the award on his behalf is Mickey McCann, a current member of the Hall of Fame and head tennis coach from 1970 through 1974.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Second line substitute has been so indicated for Randy, and I'm so glad that he selected me because I didn't know I was going to see some of the old friends and that some of my old bosses. Don Landry's right here, one of my bosses, David Boudreau, are over there. Those were 2 gentlemen I had great respect for. A lot of things they told me I didn't really quite understand it at the time, but I learned later that I did. So thank you, Don, and thank you, David. I came to Nichols never dreaming I would be a coach because I was trained as an academic person, and I came here to be the chairman of the Department of Foreign Languages and eventually director of study programs abroad. But the first tennis coach, and I think this is correct, was Lloyd Tiger LeBlanc. Is that right, Don? And he spent a whole year recruiting me to be the tennis coach. And I said, well, I don't know if Coach DBA will go for that. He said, I don't know what he thinks about having an academic person on the staff. And I said, I don't know what my boss will think about it. I don't know what the president will think about it. He said, well, we're going to find out. 1970, I became the tennis coach, and I'm sure glad I did, because it was lots of fun, particularly after Randy Raymond came in and I was demoted from head tennis coach to assistant tennis coach. That's where I wanted to be always anyway. So Randy can't be here today, and he's very sorry, but he's asked me to share a few remarks with you that he's written down So understand that he wrote them, and I didn't. And some of them, you know, have to suck up on the sense of modesty, what he has to say, and some of them are over generous. But anyway, this talk will be somewhat short of some of the others because I've already made mine years ago in the Hall of Fame as a Hall of Fame inductee. So as you listen, understand that he is sharing this with you today. I am thrilled, honored, and privileged to be inducted into the Nicholls State University Hall of Fame. This organization has many distinguished athletes, coaches, and administrators, and I'm truly honored. I'm also thrilled that one of the finest football players that I had the pleasure to ever coach, Tommy Broom, is also being inducted today. Also one of the finest speakers, too. Congratulations, Tommy, from Randy. I also want to thank the committee and the committee members who selected me for this great honor. It's extremely appreciated. Also want to thank my wife, Lucine, who was at the ripe age of 21 when I became tennis coach in the fall of 1974. Our two sons, Bo and Chad, seemed to grow up around these tennis courts at Nicholls. Lucine washed many uniforms and cooked many meals for our teams and loved every one of them. Having players from all over the world entertained our children greatly. Lucine overwhelmingly shares this honor and should, as she truly loved these athletes. Also, I'll give one personal note. My wife's already warned me not to go to bragging about what I did. I'm supposed to here tell you what Randy did. But I do want to say that my wife, and I'll introduce her to you, she also washed a lot of clothes, and she cooked a lot of meals. And she's Marion McCann. She's right here. Would you stand up, Marion? Okay, listen closely. Randy says, this honor cannot be possible without two people, Mickey and Ed Carr. Mickey, took Mickey's program and built on it. What a tremendous foundation he left. Mickey was really the first coach to understand the importance of the international player. He patiently showed me the very tedious recruiting process, which I knew nothing about. His undefeated teams and NCAA showings were well known in international tennis circles. Mickey made NSU great. It was an honor to follow him, and we have remained extremely close over the years. Thank you for your friendship, Randy. Ed Kyle from Morgan City was the godfather of this program. He was a great tennis enthusiast and quite a good player himself, even at 70-odd years old. Ed made sure that we had the resources to compete on the national level. Every year we got our budget. Coach Didier handed us our budget. And the first thing Randy did was to drive to Morgan City and sit down with Ed. Ed saw to it that we were supplemented the things that we needed to make for an outstanding NCAA type tennis team. Equipment, strings, balls, travel, and he knew that these were the things necessary to be successful. I remained close with Ed until he passed on a few years ago. His nephew is John Hine, who followed our program closely and today remains a very good friend. I was named tennis coach in 1974 after Bill Clements, I believe he's here today. Bill, yeah. As full-time football assistant, Bill was great. He totally understood that coaching a second sport was important. What Bill really understood about my situation was the type of successful program I inherited. It helped that he and Mickey were good friends, and Bill did not want the tennis program to go downhill. Bill was very patient with my commitment to tennis, and I appreciated it greatly. Coach Didier was also our AD at that time, who wanted Nichols to be good in every sport, as did Don Landry, who later became the athletic director. These two gentlemen, Coach Didier and Don Landry, Don Landry's here, and as you know, Coach Didier passed on. These two men wanted us to be successful, excuse me for this floppy paper, because they were both result-oriented. Coach Didier just could never figure out why Swedish players had to have it so long. There was probably more to it than that, wasn't it, Don? It was, they couldn't have it so long. And so we had some hard times with the long hair, and Don helped mediate that. It's appreciated. Our first year was not very good, and that was my fault. I had allowed 2 All-Americans tennis players to leave the program before the spring season began because I just didn't get it. There was a huge lesson that I swore would never happen to me again. Mickey held my hand through that tough first season, and then we went to recruiting. The first and difficult season did have some outstanding players. Carlos Echeverria was our captain. Kuldeep Singh, the Davis Cup player from Atlanta, came that year. And is still very much involved with all of us. He's a professor today at the top Malaysian university, and was a great help to us in helping us make decisions. He's an outstanding person and was someone who taught me a lot. In 1975, proved to be the only year that NSU did not win the conference championship. That would never happen again. The next year got better, only because we got better players, not better coaching. I'm not sure about that. We were gathering momentum. We had 4 freshmen, 1 sophomore, and 1 junior in the opening lineup. We won the conference, got invited to the NCAAs, but didn't play very well. Again, that was the last time that was to happen. The 1976 team had some more great moments. It was going to be part of a great foundation. Jens Hildebrand, Kyle Kajan, Kuldeep Singh, Ulf Eriksson were just some of the good players who also turned out to be outstanding students. 1977, we got around the corner. One of the biggest signings in our history, a guy from Sweden named Torbjörn Fast. We knew he was good, that we had followed him in tournaments in Sweden and in junior circles. He was everything we wanted. A natural leader, tenacious competitor. He was a 4-year captain and 2-time All-American, as well as a Hall of Fame member here at the university. He brought with him a couple of friends, a couple of guys, I don't know if they were friends, Jan Friedman and Michael Strippel, both from Sweden. who really made a difference. We won the conference easily and made somewhat of a splash in the NCAAs. But by the way, I want to say that Torbjorn is here. He's a Hall of Fame member. And it still makes me feel good to look at somebody that's been an All-American 2 times. You want to stand up, Torbjorn? The next 3 years were sheer magic. We were able to expand our recruiting into Great Britain, Brazil, Australia, and the Philippines. We carried 15 players that year. Most teams had 6 or 7. Didn't have rules about that. The competition to make the top 6 for us was phenomenal. We had 2 players off that team that participated and played in Wimbledon, and that was Martin Robinson and Harvey Becker. And Martin Robinson, Torbjorn, who did he beat in Wimbledon? You don't remember? Okay. Both were named All-Americans. Harvey was only 17 at the time and only stayed 1 year and then immediately turned pro after the NCAA tournament. Torbjorn was our captain. We went undefeated that year. To show you the spirit of our athletic program, I'll do some caveats of my own on this. Randy brought a spirit of football coaching to tennis. And we didn't know anything much about that, but learning about that tennis was a team sport and should be a team sport if you're going to be successful. That people had to step up. We'd never heard step up. Now it's all stepping up. People had to step up. People had to play together. And we played together because when one match would finish, that player would go over and cheer for somebody on the team whose match was still going on. Randy wanted to tell you a little story, and Torbjorn's going to remember this, and so is Don Landry. Our last match of the year was against, called USL, and we won undefeated, and they had 2 losses. One of our best players was ill and not able to make the trip. Torbjorn was on this trip. And what USL did when they played Nichols or any good team, it would get the football team out there and sit them in the stands and try to intimidate you. It worked. So Randy talked to Don Landry. He said, could we get the bus and Sam, the driver, and drive our football team over there? I told Randy, I was not going to do that. I wouldn't do that. Don Landry did it. We loaded up that old red bus, which has been referred to already here once today, and we took people, most of the football players on that bus, to try to offset the USL team. Well, we were going over there, and it was going to be difficult to win with having one of the best players ill. And so a tennis match is made up of 9 points, 6 singles and 3 doubles. At the end of the 6 singles, the last singles match, we're behind 4-2. But there was no quitting in these guys. And with the cheering of the football players, we won by 1 point. USL was stunned. We loved it. And as Randy told him afterwards in the little team meeting, you guys stepped up. And that is what they did. 1979 and 80, 1980, if you recall, was Randy's last year, was just as magical and fulfilling. We had Torbjorn for for 2 more years as our captain. Our younger players had matured and also played with championship fervor. We also brought in some additional international players, very outstanding players. Klaus Arvidsson from Sweden, Juan Hidalgo from Barcelona, who both turned out to be All-Americans. They had not only great ability, but had wonderful character. During this period, there were 2 people I will never forget. Raul Mendez from Barcelona, Spain, and Luis Lambano, also from Medellin, Colombia, who was listed as a trainer, but he was really the coach. He coached for us, and he did everything that a human being could do for the players to make it comfortable. Raul turned out to be a really outstanding player. He too became an All-American, and his parents had the opportunity to come to Nichols from Spain several times to see a match. In 1979, we kind of glossed over this a little bit, but it meant a lot to me as an assistant coach. We finished 3rd in the NCAA. And we had finished 12th before, we had finished 9th, but 3rd. Oh, that was exciting. People cared about what we were doing in tennis and wanted to help us. We always called up flack, and I just told Torbian today, I'm still getting it, why we recruited so many international players. And I have a long answer for that, but I'm going to try to close out here that. But you win with international players. Just as an incidental remark, the 36 players in the finals of this year's NCAA tournament, 76% of them were international players. In 1980, Randy he passes it over slightly, and I'm going to make a remark. Nichols was featured on ESPN. We had 2 opportunities to be on ESPN. And in the finals for the national championship, we played Southern Illinois, and they beat us by 2 points. Nichols was runner-up for the national championship in 1980. And we're very, very proud of that. Randy closes with the remark, I remember these days like it was yesterday. I have nothing but great memories of the tennis program. I loved all of those guys, and I still do today. Thank you so much, Coach Raymond.